Good day. Today we have in our studio Nomvula Mokonyane, Minister of Water and Sanitation, and she has the life and death job of bringing everybody water. So, good morning, Minister.
Morning and morning to the viewers.
Minister, you've recently been at Scopa, and you've recently had to give a number of responses to accusations around perhaps that your department has not been as run as efficiently as it could be. Take us through some of your explanations and what you feel needs to be done about the department and the future.
The processes of accounting before Parliament are quite important for enlightening society, including the legislators, on the responsibilities of this department. You can plan for tomorrow, but in less than 20 minutes from now, something would happen and you are expected to intervene. There's a lot in the sector that is unavoidable and unforeseen. Secondly, we also have to interact through Scopa and our portfolio committee, explaining the fact that whilst the Constitution puts it as our responsibility to provide water, the South African laws have been drafted and designed in an unfortunate way, where finally it's not my responsibility in the Department of Water and Sanitation to provide water up to your own yard. However, with the challenges of more than 27 district municipalities not having the capacity to deliver water, and yet they are water service authorities, they receive direct grants from National Treasury, and we have no influence on them. We definitely have to now review the laws, because over the last 3 years, unfortunately, one came into this office, there was insufficient water in the country, and we had to adapt as we go. So you commit for what you want to do over a year, and in a period of 2 weeks something drastic happens. You also have to look at the infrastructure that collapses, that was not planned for, and most importantly put money on maintenance and responsibilities. What is a challenge is that the department was never designed. The way it's designed, it's not at a level where it has to be that responsive as expected. And that is what we are dealing with. And hence we're working towards the establishment of a national water and sanitation agency that can have all the skills in-house.
Okay, it does seem as though there's an issue in that your department has overall responsibility, but municipalities have the general responsibilities. You were saying a bit earlier before we started that municipalities owe 11 billion to your department. How is that affecting your day-to-day running of it?
You plan assuming that you'll collect the money, and that's exactly where the problem is. The shortfall that continues to grow within the Department of Water and Sanitation. That you plan with an assumption that I have to provide so many megaliters of raw water, and in return I will be paid X amount of money, but you don't get that money. And yet you have a constitutional obligation, irrespective of whether you are paid or not, to still provide, whether for political reasons, whether for social reasons, whether for health purposes. You have that constitutional obligation. So we have that a contradiction that we are now beginning to interact with National Treasury and our portfolio committee to say, let's review policy. We can't have 27 district municipalities not being able to do anything that has to do with provision of water services, yet they continue to receive money, yet they can't generate revenue, yet they don't have human capital, and we have a department that ordinarily doesn't have to oversee them because they are a water service authority, and therefore the department doesn't have that capacity. So together with the Department of Cooperative Governance, we have to look at this issue. You ask me, I think 23 years of democracy, the systems of dealing with water security in South Africa cannot proceed this way. Whether it's Nomvula or it's not Nomvula, the minister, it can't be in this particular fashion. Remember, we've also made a commitment of a free basic service. Can water be a free basic service? Yet it costs so much to provide. If really we have agreed in the Constitution, how do we then make sure that we commit to the constitutional obligation, but we become hard beyond the constitutional obligation, prepaid water, better systems of reticulation, and more importantly, making local government not to see water like electricity as a revenue generating service.
Yes, because it's a human right according to our Constitution.
And we must take that. And I think what the issues that are coming out of the budget are a reflection of those contradictions. To say, we've said it's a human rights issue. We said every South African is entitled to 6 kiloliters, and yet we use more than 6 kiloliters. There's no responsibility on another side. So we'll continue going. It's not a good story because we're expected to stick to an annual performance plan. But if you ask me, will I fold my arms when the entire community of Qwaqwa has no water and say it's not my competence? I will not do that.
You can't. You can't do that, can you? And yet that difference between what is a local government obligation or service and national still seems to play out. But I think you've dealt with that in some way. If we can go on a little bit down perhaps into the highlights of your budget. What do you want to see in the next year? How are you going to resolve some of these issues? Also bearing in mind that you've just come through a few devastating droughts, and in Cape Town there seems to be no end to the water problems.
We have to go into what I call the new normal, doing things differently, promoting partnerships between our research institutions, the private sector, government and big business. And at the center of it, it must be every household and every community in South Africa. Because what we cannot afford, it's a situation where we are not able to sustain the quality of water. For me, that is one of the very critical things that we now want to focus on. South Africa has been known as having the best quality of water. It's now been affected by contamination. Even these rains that have come, they've also contributed. There are other reservoirs and dams now that are shut because mud is just slipping into the dams and all those things, into the rivers. Pipes are bursting. So we need to also focus on maintenance. There is no use for us to build many other new dams and stuff when we can't look at what we have, look at it and look after it and maintain it. So maintenance is also quite important. Then the third thing, it's about reaching the unserved. We can talk about reliability of water, but as long as you still have the rural poor who do not have access to water, and they're still sharing water with animals. That, for me, is quite important. And the last one, it's about dignified sanitation solutions. They are not just dependent on waterborne, and that's exactly what we are looking at together with the Water Research Commission. But of importance, we must get local government, because the plans are approved at that level. The priority projects are decided upon at that level. That can then improve the hygiene standards, the dignity standards of every toilet, but also managing our wastewater treatment plants as a nation is what we must really deal with. Yes, there are mega projects. We're still going on with phase 2 of Lesotho Highlands. We are going ahead with Mzimvubu. All we're waiting for now, we've done our plans, we've done our designs, we've gone out to look also on the economic side of the Mzimvubu project, and we are waiting the Minister of Finance to then make a pronouncement, which we hope it will be done in due course. We're raising the Glen Willem Dam, and in fact, learning from the drought and these rains, our view is let's go and raise the walls of many of the existing dams. Secondly, let's go and put reticulation on the dams that are already existing, because most of them don't serve deserving communities, the unserved. They serve industry. So every dam we can't have a single purpose dam We must invest on multi-purpose, also given the reality that we have a serious financial challenge. So we can't plan as if there's sufficient money.
Yes, I think that I think everybody works under financial challenges. But if you think about it, on the one hand, you're talking about water that will provide dignity to people, in order to go to the toilet, fresh drinking water, etc., etc. On the other hand, you have mega projects which largely, as you say, go to industry. So you've got quite a fairly broad range of priorities. How do you prioritize? What is when you wake up in the morning? What do you care about the most?
Efficiency in the value chain. There must be efficiency, because the problem is the water sector has been so fragmented, and the water sector has also been so linked to separate development. There can be a dam across the road, and because of separate development, I may not have access to it. So that's why I'm saying we must put this phase as us doing the new normal, attending to things differently, sorting out that we have and making sure that it reaches everyone. A water use license doesn't mean you are a water owner. And that's exactly where we must be very strong on, and yet we are very weak on as government. Our rivers, our dams, our streams are actually contaminated. Jukskei just here around the corner. If you want to see everything called waste, go and stand along the river banks of Jukskei. And yet this is the water that we need. Our money then gets diverted to go to Rand Water to clean this water to an extent that it can be used. So we need to look at those things. So ask me, what is it that every time when I wake up I bother about? It's about efficiency and better use and distribution of this scarce resource so that we can transform our economy, we can transform our living conditions, but most importantly, we can fulfill the constitutional obligation.
You have a constitutional obligation to bring water to households and business, etc., but mainly to households. But in Cape Town, there's going to be an ongoing struggle. How are you tackling the Cape Town drought situation in terms of not only the immediacy, because it looks pretty damning at the moment, but in terms of long-term planning?
Cape Town is better positioned compared to our inland provinces that were hardest hit by the drought. Why we find ourselves in this situation is because ordinarily the Western Cape is dependent on the winter rains. And rather than them getting the winter rains, we actually had flooding. And when you have floods, you can't even catch that water. And it doesn't actually go into the directions that you want it to go because of the realities of climate change. The last two reliable rainfalls that were supposed to get to Cape Town ended up in KwaZulu-Natal, all because of this reality of climate change. So we need to look at alternative solutions in the Western Cape, the reuse of wastewater, the exploration of desalination. There are many cost-effective desalination solutions, portable ones, that you can use not in one area, but you can transfer to different areas. We are now upgrading our own bulk infrastructure in Theewaterskloof and Fuelvlei Dam, where because of the water levels now, we can't even get into the underlying infrastructure. So we have to wait for the water to sink so that then we plan for the future. We redesign it for the future. We upgrade it. We upgrade for the future. Then the Table Mountain, the aquifers, we need to do that. But of importance, behavioral change is important. In fact, it is the rich that are wasting more of water compared to the poor who ordinarily don't have the water anyway. And we need to thank many of the Cape Townians who have really responded. But my concern goes beyond the Cape Town Metro. It's those small dorpies of the Western Cape that contribute to the economy of this country in terms of the wine farms and so on, and the plight of farm workers who will then be laid off. And that's why then we are doing drilling of boreholes. That's why we are bringing water tanks there. That's why we are also raising awareness in terms of water saving, such as drop a block, and even the war on leaks. South Africa is losing almost 7 billion rands worth of water per annum. Imagine if we could save that. Hence, we are training our young people as part of the decade of an artisan in what we call war on leaks, so that we have the capacity within the state and other institutions to go and save this 7 billion. And we are now getting into the third phase of that particular program. So Cape Town is now on the fourth stage of the water restriction, which is the severest. The next will be a shutdown. We have made a commitment with the executive mayor of the city and the MEC that we shall not reach a shutdown. And we shall not reach a shutdown through communication, through behavioral change, through better management of water.
It's pretty dire if you're in the fourth, in the fourth stage. It's really, I can't remember in my lifetime that we've been in that fourth stage where
we've never been.
Yes, yes.
And that's exactly the thing about climate change. Nobody could plan for this. We knew that there is this cyclical occurrence of drought, but this has gone to the extreme. And hence what you see here in Gauteng, what you see in KwaZulu-Natal, because these are, even the water scientists can't explain. And it is that makes even the world, the United Nations, begin to say adaptation is very important because of the realities of climate change, air pollution, gas emissions, all those things we need to deforestation, we must deal with those things. Encroachment to the areas that could have actually prevented the flooding. What we must now start looking at as a nation is you can't ignore maintenance. Our water drainage system in Gauteng deserves to be put as a priority. The drainage systems in many of our urban areas, because that's where you find informal settlements, informal trading, and even your upmarket, like eThekwini, your upmarket property development, encroaching into a space that ordinarily it should have been conserved. And hence, the enforcement of the environmental impact assessment for any development is very important. The insistence on bulk infrastructure, including the draining system everywhere, and the catchments, which is something that we are quite excited about. We now have partners from Hungary and from Iran who are coming to the party working with us on creating mobile catchment solutions. And the South African National Defence Force has also come to the party because, you know, the army can build a city overnight. So that's what a mobile city. So we're doing those kind of things so that we can take this water in a much more bigger scale and go and purify. So it is those kind of partnerships that are also international partnerships that are helping us to adapt as a nation.
On the one hand, you're in crisis. On the other hand, it looks as though there's lots of nice, innovative things. Let me go on a little bit into the. You've spoken about drains, runoff, water, saving water in terms of leaks, etc., etc. But it's none of these stories that grab you the top headlines. The ones that grab you the top headlines are the Lesotho Highlands project. What is going on, and how are you going to resolve
Lesotho is going
those
so fantastically well. It's going well. The only problem with Lesotho is that we said things must change. What has made it, things must change. It can't only be multinationals that are beneficiaries when it comes to the economic benefit. And you only have South Africans benefiting in terms of having water reaching Gauteng, and that water bypassing the Free State. It's those kind of things. Because you can't have a mega project of this particular scale and national interests are not put first in terms of who is the beneficiary. So the sin that has been committed in the Lesotho Highlands is about having learned from phase one. We now are saying any procurement that has to happen, it must first prioritize South Africans, Basotho, people from our region, SADC, Africa, and the world. And when the world comes, we must impose on them to bring in local content and transfer. But in terms of the implementation of the program, remember, Lesotho was never meant for the drought. Lesotho was never meant for today. Lesotho's projection is 2028. I will not even be there. But work starts now. And that is the thing that we are now working on. Yes, there were delays because of some of the political instabilities in Lesotho, which you also have to be sensitive about. When there's a new government, they would want to look at how they relate with you, how they sort out things, because the first treaty that was signed with the then apartheid government worked at the expense of Basotho nationals and the historically disadvantaged South Africans. It even went to an extent where the institutional memory of phase one is not even in our possession. It's in the possession of foreign financial institutions, and which means we will forever be dependent on them. Phase two can't proceed that way.
Why do people find it so difficult to understand that South Africans should benefit from our mega projects?
It's because it has been too easy to have a minority, very white, minority in the economic sector that has actually been beneficiaries in the name of South Africans. When you start saying, no, 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 you don't own the monopoly of being South African, allow our own to participate, then people get annoyed.
The annoyment always comes in terms of accusations of corruption.
It's corrupt when it is black.
Maladministration, etc., etc.
Yes. It's corrupt when it is black. It is corrupt when you say, let's have set-asides. It's corrupt when you're saying women must play a role there. It's corrupt when you're saying we can't not project manage this kind of a project as our own. Because remember, water is also a security matter. Water is a security matter. If South African institutions that are involved in the water sector will not even understand where the pipes from Pudihadi Dam to the Vaal River here in Vereeniging are moving, and where are the original plans of phase one?
So it sounds as though this reluctance is something that you're going to have to manage.
You don't manage reluctance. You must fight it
or fix it.
Yes. Don't fix it. Don't fix it. Fixing it's like you're bringing it back.
Yes.
Let's crash it. Let's refuse to look after this thing. It has caused so much harm. Our people are unemployed. Wealth has not been shared adequately. If you are a policy maker and you are a custodian, appreciate that when you deal with a system that has disadvantaged many, you will lose friends. Some may actually be black like me, and yet they are handled by others on the side. I will stand that. I know that some of us, our reputation, our integrity has been destroyed, finished by those who want to protect the status quo. But I always say there are many other silent majority in South Africa who understand what we are doing. And if there is anything wrong I'm doing, but doing it in their best interest, I will do it. It's the same as Giyani. There's Giyani. Giyani is in Limpopo. In 2013, Nomvula was the premier here in Gauteng. The High Court makes a ruling to say Mopani district municipality has failed to provide, again, Water Service Authority, has failed to provide clean and reliable water to hospitals. Kids with newborn babies were dying in 3 hospitals in Limpopo. Villages didn't have, school kids could not go to school. A court decides, and we come in 2014, we get this court order that says you shall act within a particular period of time. Treat this as emergency. In the water sector, emergency is not 6 months, as how the AG wants to put it. It's not like putting back a window pane. Because as you go and make sure that the hospital, Kansani Hospital in Giyani, has got water, you have to go and check the pipes, you have to drill. Putting a borehole does not only mean buying this above board structure, it means getting energy, laying the pipe, putting a generator that can deal with this, and then abstracting and purifying. We had to do those things. And today, more than 40 villages have got access to clean water. The hospitals have got even backup water for any eventuality, and we are proceeding. And the outcry, including from the AG, and other people in the political space, is that it's wasteful expenditure. it may not be in line with how people expect a Department of Water and Sanitation to function. But for me, it is in line with the constitutional obligation. But also, imagine if a Nomvula would have come 2014 and said, I'm not going to respond to the judge, to the court order. Again, I would be seen as a rebel. So it's that dynamic in the water sector. And by the way, we've even taken a conscious decision that we're not going to stop until the entire community of Guyane is given water. But as long as the others believe that this is irregular, is whatever, and I can't help it. What I can do is to just make sure that I remain focused. I make sure that I report to the communities, to Parliament, and most importantly, we change the lives of those people.
I'm sure that those people would speak on your behalf in that case.
They've got jobs.
Yeah.
They've got clean water for the first time I went to Guyane, and I'm going to say it on record.
Yeah.
We had a community meeting, different community meetings. We were on a roadshow. An old lady came to a meeting carrying a bucket, a white bucket. And she says, I waited for you and I came to this meeting. And after this, I have to go to a well and go and find possibilities of getting water for myself and my grandchildren. But let me tell you, I can't wait to see this thing happening because I've been raped more than 3 times.
Raped more than 3
yes.
times?
As she goes to a well, and she has to bend, and she has to kneel, she has to throw a bucket, and she says, it's a trip I can't avoid in my life. Somebody accuses me, and I'm saying, go on site. Yes, we might have taken a water tanker and put it at the hospital and took some water tankers to villages, but that would not have been sustainable. And there's nothing called emergency for water to be something fixed within a period of 6 months. That Mopani water scheme was a big scheme. The sad thing is that those that are behind that scheme, that scheme's collapse in Limpopo, remember, are those that led to the Limpopo government being put under Section 100. And people forget, and the media forget, some in the media forget, and it's like I came walking from my house and decided to go to Guyane. Ask me if I'll do it tomorrow. There's already another court order in the Northwest.
Okay.
We must act on it. But what must happen? There must be consequences against those municipalities. There must be consequences against those municipalities who get the resources, who appoint wrong people, and at the end of the day, we have to step in. Hence, I'm saying a single water and sanitation entity for South Africa, wall to wall, it's the way to go.
It sounds like you have a lot of work more to do, so long as you get people, water into people's homes.
The unserved, in particular.
In particular. Anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, 3 things I want to add. One is that we need to appreciate that globally, water infrastructure and sanitation infrastructure have been seen as the new gold. We will be convening an investment summit, talking to the private sector, financial institutions, sharing with them together with TCTA and the Water Research Commission and our water boards on the infrastructure and the investment opportunities, given the limitations of our fiscals, because nowhere in the world does water infrastructure and services rely solely on the fiscals. We are convening that before the end of the year. The second one, it's about bringing women. One of the things that we are very determined to deal with is that women can't only be those who go and fetch water. They must also be involved in the construction, in the development, in the leadership, and so on. The third thing, it's about creation of new industries and innovation. It can no longer just be brick and mortar that deals with water infrastructure. There are many other solutions. And the last one, we need each other. It's only through partnerships.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.